What is moral action summary in English? In his characteristic simple and earnest style, Mahatma Gandhiji writes here about the actions that are moral and those that are not. He does not contrast moral actions with immoral ones. Instead, he examines certain actions which are usually considered moral, but which when viewed from certain angles, are not at all moral or are non-moral. Firstly, he refers to those actions which all of us carry out according to prevailing social conventions. In the absence of these conventions, there would be anarchy in society. Hence such actions do not qualify as moral actions. Secondly, Gandhiji says that for an act to be moral, it must spring from our own will. The act should not be done mechanically but should be born out of our discrimination. Here Gandhiji gives the example of a king who pardons a culprit and sends the message. If the messenger mechanically bears the order of pardon, he is not doing a moral act, but if he thinks it is his duty to deliver the king's message, he is being moral. A man should use his own intelligence and power of thought. He gives an example of Wendell Phillips who doesn't care for opinions of people unless they learn to form such opinions on their own. Gandhiji wants everyone to listen to their conscience and only then act. Thirdly, even a good act is not moral unless it is done with the intention to do good. A man might feed hungry people because he feels sorry for them, whereas another might feed them because he wants to be popular with them. The action of the second one cannot be moral because it was born out of a selfish intention. Good results may not flow from a good act, but results should be left to God. Gandhiji gives the example of Alexander the Great, who went to different parts of the world, and in conquering them, he spread the Greek language and culture everywhere. However, the intention of Alexander was only conquest, not spread of culture. Hence, though he was called great, his action cannot be called moral. Fourthly, an act to be moral should be done without compulsion or fear. If a person rises early in order to reach the office out of fear that he might lose the job, his act is not moral. Similarly, if an employer sympathizes with his employees or gives them higher wages for fear that they might leave him, he is not performing a moral act. If he had rewarded them out of gratitude, he would have performed a moral act. Fifthly, a moral act has no self-interest behind it. Even honesty will not give good results if it is indulged in as the best policy. Honesty should be the only policy to guide a person. As Shakespeare says, love born out of the profit motive is no love. Finally, just as acts done with the motive of material gain in this world are not moral, acts done with motive of comfort and personal grace in another world are also not moral. Gandhiji gives the example of two saints here. Saint Francis Xavier prayed not for a higher seat after death but because it was man's duty to pray. Saint Teresa wished to keep a torch in her right hand and a vessel of water in her left, so that with the one she might burn the glories of heaven and with the other extinguish the fires of hell, and men might learn to serve God from love alone, without fear of hell and without temptation of heavenly bliss. Gandhiji gives the example of two more people who live virtuously throughout their lives, but sacrifice their principles just once, thereby wiping out all the good they had done. Gandhiji concludes that it is difficult to judge the morality of man's action because we cannot penetrate the depths of his mind.